Hey, what's going on? Welcome to your daily dose of mind stuff. I am Ed Reiner, your host, your guide on this crazy world of mind and potential and all things personal development, personal growth. I want to welcome you today. We have been going over the Born Rich seminar that Bob Proctor did back in the 80s that so far has been absolutely phenomenal. These are things that I'm studying on a daily basis. So I'm just taking you along my journey with me as I study on a daily basis. So this is a video that I watched today, took notes on, and I'm sharing it again because it's the repetition of these ideas. So I'm watching it over again. So today we are moving over. We're on day 56 of 100. And this is session 6 on You Were Born Rich. And today, John Canary is going to dive deeper into the mind and get into our intellectual factors. Now, you know, we pull our model up here. We've been conditioned to live through our sensory factors, which are represented by this antenna up here. We can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Okay. That's how we've been conditioned to live, by what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what's going on. Everything is coming in through these sensory factors into our conscious mind, and we can accept or reject whatever is coming in there. Okay. We also have been gifted with intellectual factors. As Bob said in the other session the other day, that Archibald MacLeish in his play said that the only difference between a man and his pets are his intellectual factors. Everything else you can find in a pig or a horse. The mind is the only thing that is different. So we're going to get into these intellectual factors because it's what separates us from the animal kingdom. We have the ability to use these intellectual factors, these higher factors in our intellect, to create images, to create whatever it is that we want. And John Canary is going to go into that, and he's going to go into belief systems, how our belief systems were built. He's going to go into how, as young kids, we don't have the ability to accept or reject anything. Our little mind is wide open. If we take this and cut this like this, that's the mind. It's wide open. So anything that's coming in goes straight in there. So let's pop over to John, and we'll get this going with him. And as always, I will see you when we're done with the recap.
Now I'm going to ask you to take a look at a picture. I'm going to bring a picture up close to you. First of all, I'm going to hold it up. Some of you have seen this before, but I'm going to ask you, some of you, to tell me, what is it you really see? Now, if I were to go over here to Paul and say, Paul, what is it you actually see when I ask you to take a look at this picture? What do you see, Paul? You see a skull. Andy, tell me, what were you able to see? You were able to see a skull. Now, if I take a closer walk over here to someone here, what is your name, sir?
Jim.
Jim, what did you see?
I saw a skull.
You saw a skull. Jim, can you just walk up here for a moment? I just want to get you on camera here and get you to take a closer look at this. And just take a look and tell me, yes or no, is that a skull?
No, it's not a skull.
It's not a skull. As a matter of fact, Jim, is it a beautiful picture if you take a closer look?
It's kind of a nice picture.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice picture. Thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate that. Now, you see, the closer that I get to you with this picture, you're going to start to see something completely different than what you thought you were looking at. You see, you instantly said, that's a skull. You remember this morning, Robert talked about cells of recognition. And you were able to see this with your eyes. Your eyes picked it up and sent a transmission of energy to cells in your brain. Cells in your brain. those cells were triggered, are moved into a speed of vibration, a high amplitude of vibration, and flashed a picture on the screen of your mind. The picture you were able to describe is a skull. But you know something? That's not true. You know what I've got here, isn't that correct? Do you know what I've got here, Tammy? You see, some of us in here have exactly the same picture of what's in this skull. What it is a beautiful lady looking in a mirror. Now, there is no way, unless you get a close look at this, can you see a beautiful lady looking in a mirror. There is just no way that you can actually see it unless you get closer. I want you to think about something, and it's extremely important. Do you know that some of us, since we were infants, have been doing certain things in a certain way because of a belief system we've fallen in love with, and we protect that belief system even in favor of the truth? Even in favor of the truth. There are people who will die for tradition, even if it means learning the truth. On the very first page of this particular lesson, page 11, at the very top, it's referred to as your greatest power. Your greatest power. And I want you to follow through this particular lesson with me as I begin to work with it on the board a little bit. But at the very top, when you were an infant, and in the early years of your life, the ability to control what energy or ideas were entering your subconscious mind had not yet been developed. In other words, the age of reason, before the age of reason, before we ate of what is called that tree of knowledge. I'm talking about, you could say, our little life. Long before we were able to say yay or nay. Now, there's a question I want you to ask yourself as I get into this. And the question goes like this. Who and or what is in control of my life? Who and or what is in control of my life? Now, George Bernard Shaw one time put it this way. He said, it seems that people are forever blaming their circumstance for who and what they are. He said, don't believe in circumstance. The people who get on in this world, who come up with the results, are the people who look for the circumstance they want, and if they can't find them, then they go back and they make them. Then they go back and they make them. So let's just maybe take a look at how we learn some of the things we've learned. First of all, let's understand that we are all a confluence of a genetic structure. You could say that our genetic structure makes up a lot of what we believe and a lot of what we are, but not near as important as our environment. I one time heard Earl Nightingale make a statement that went like this. He said, all kinds of studies have been made regarding motivation. What is it, he said, that motivates us to do the things we do, to achieve the things we achieve? And he said, well, there's no pat answer to so large and complicated a question. He said, we believe that the overriding force that motivates people is due to choice of environment. Now, he said, some people make this choice consciously, but a great majority of people make this choice unconsciously as a result of environmental conditioning. Now, let's just go back into our little life for a moment. A very simple little exercise, but yet you see, even though we know it, it doesn't mean we are actually implementing the understanding of it. And you could say there is our outside world that has the predominant influence in the life of a child and what that child becomes. Now think about it. Here is a child who was born in absolute perfection. maybe not physically speaking, but from a spiritual point of view, this child was born absolutely perfect. And in the beginning, they have the ability to think, they have the ability to reason, they have all the intellectual factors somewhere resonant within their mind, but they're not yet developed. Consequently, their mind is wide open for any idea that is going to come down the tube. Let me give you a good example of that. If I were to just come over here and I were to speak to you, Nick, Mr. Kavuk. Mr. Kavuk, if I were to ask you what religion you are, if you had to name one, what would it be? Christian. Now let's keep in mind that there are what? There are 47 types of Christianity in California alone. Now, what are your children, Nick? They're Christian. Now, were they born Christians, Nick? They were born Christians. Now, here's the point. Here's a brand new baby, and we'll just call this baby Billy or Julie. And one of the things that the baby is going to learn is about that symbol. Is that right? Yes, no. The baby is going to learn something about that symbol, just as Onek was just telling me. That's an idea that the baby is going to learn. But let's understand how the baby learns to begin with. How many people have a young baby? How many? All right. What's the baby's name? Rebecca. What is it? Rebecca. How old is the baby? 11 months. Now, Rebecca is being spoon-fed by now. Is that correct, Dad? Yeah, Rebecca's being spoon-fed. Now, here's what happened. Now, when you first got Rebecca, did you say, your name is Rebecca and don't you ever forget it? Is that what happened first day you brought her home? Okay. Now, isn't it true that if you notice Rebecca, that at a certain point in her life there, I don't know how many weeks it was, but there's a hand. She's looking at this hand she's holding up. And she's wondering, what is this? They start to examine this hand. They're wondering, what is that? It takes them a while to find out that it belongs to them because they take it and they bite it, and then they know it belongs to them. And they take the same thing with their foot. And, they're wondering, where did this come from? Well, Bob mentioned this morning, I am not a physical instrument. I am and I have, and I live in. All right. Well, you see, Rebecca is a spiritual creature. And Rebecca, for the most part, is going to learn about Rebecca from the people by whom she is surrounded in her outside world. That's how Rebecca is going to learn. But do you know there's a certain point in Rebecca's life, and it could be now, could be later, but there's a day that Rebecca is going to go through some introspection, and this is what Rebecca is going to say silently in her heart of hearts. There's a little thing written by Adele Davis, and it goes like this. Who is this person called I? How many times maybe have you been blue? How many times have you been blue and maybe looked at a friend and said, hey gosh, I wish I were you? Or how many times have you attempted to change, say, your whole life's pattern and to rearrange? Rebecca doesn't know. She doesn't know why she feels the way she feels. Well, you see, this is the way that Rebecca started to learn. If we were to just take and say, Rebecca is going to learn to eat off the spoon, this is what will happen. Mom will take a spoon. Rebecca's mind is wide open. She's crying for the food. And Mom will take the spoon. She'll start to go like this. Come on, honey. Open your mouth now. Open it wide. Open up, Rebecca. But Rebecca doesn't open up. That's why she has food all over her. She's got it all over the clothes. But Mom continues to go, open wide, honey. And eventually little Rebecca starts to do what? She starts to emulate who? Mom. And she starts to open her mouth, in goes the spoon. She identifies now. There's been an idea or there's been an image fixed in little Rebecca's mind. Do you know this is going to continue as Rebecca begins to grow up? I'm going to say things to her like, you're just like your father. You make me so angry. And all these ideas now are being impregnated or are being impressed in this little girl's mind to the point where they make up the concept, the belief system, or the idea, or what Rebecca comes to believe is true about her world that she lives in. What happens when Rebecca starts to eat of this tree of knowledge, where she develops the ability to reason, the ability to choose? You know, now that Rebecca can think, let's not make the mistake of believing that because she can think, that she is actually thinking. As Dr. Ken McFarland said, Bob was referring to, 2% of the people think, 3% of the people think they think, 95% of the people rather die than think. Rebecca is not necessarily thinking. Let me give you a good example. What is it that's causing Rebecca to do the things that she's doing? We know it's got to be the conditioned mind. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is the ideas that have been impregnated in her subconscious or her conditioned mind. Let me give you a good example. One day, Rebecca is going out and she's doing a little bit of shopping with Mom. And they get in this car and they start down the street. And Rebecca leans into the front seat. Now remember, she now has the ability to reason. But it doesn't mean she is. She is a product to a large extent of her environment. And she leans in the front seat and she says, Mommy, where are all those dumb bastards today? Well, Mom's got all the wisdom. Mom is thinking, you see, she grabs the steering wheel, thinks about it, says, oh, honey, you just relax. Because they only come out when your father is driving. Was that little girl doing something wrong? Did she say anything wrong? Not in her mind. But you see, the day that Mom begins to explain it to her will give her cause to think or give her cause to reason. It is then and only then that she can change the information that has been handed over to the conditioned mind. That has been handed over to the conditioned mind. Now go back to your workbook because we've got to cover these couple of pages. Go back to your workbook right now. Go down a little further where James Allen made a great quote. He said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Was he talking about the physical pump here? No, he was talking about the heart of hearts. He said, as a man thinketh in his heart. Now, he didn't say as a man and not a woman. He didn't say a man and a woman, not a child. He didn't say a person who works at Ford, but not one at General Motors. He didn't say a black person, but not a white person. He said the heart of hearts because the heart of hearts, you see, has no complexion. The heart of hearts doesn't care where you live. The heart of hearts doesn't care who you know. It doesn't care what you have. The heart of hearts states that any idea you turn over to me, like to Rebecca, if Rebecca was taught an idea that was not good for Rebecca, Rebecca will act out that idea, good, bad, or indifferent, because the idea states that as a person thinketh in their heart, so they will be in their action, in their results, in their life. So you see, maybe in the beginning, someone was in control of Rebecca's life. But it reaches a point where no one is in control of Rebecca's life anymore. And this is what I want to see if we can get through here before too long. Now, help me on this page. It says you're no longer an infant. You do have control over what enters your subconscious mind. Whether you're exercising that control or not exercising it is another subject. You know, a mother got up one morning, she yelled up the stairs. She said, son, get ready. We're going. You got to get going to school. He yelled down, I'm not going. You have to. Give me 2 good reasons why I should. Well, she said, the first one is you're 40 and the second one is you're the principal. So we're no longer an infant. Go along here with me again, if you will. You can control what enters your subconscious mind, and furthermore, you definitely have the God-given ability to change the old conditioning. You know, I don't think there is anything greater that you can learn about you than that statement. You see, your present conditioning is your personal life, what you have, what you believe you are. It is your family life, and it is your business life. It is your income. It is everything about you. That is a reflection of your own conditioning. I remember one time I put on a particular tape by a guy named Earl Nightingale. And Nightingale said this. It was probably one of the better things I've ever heard. Nightingale said that your world and everything in it is a reflection of your own mental attitude toward yourself. This world that you live in, that you see, and everything you believe it to be, it is a reflection of your own mental attitude towards yourself. So here we have what is called the old conditioning. That's what we are today, regardless of where that might be. And here we are with a new idea. In other words, we are living with a belief system, as you see over there, and what we are attempting to do sometimes is to develop a new, constructive, or a bigger idea. Had someone mentioned to me today, well, I don't know how to do it. You know what? There isn't a soul alive that knows how to reach a goal until they reach it. There isn't one living soul alive that knows how to reach a goal until they reach it. And even a person who has can't tell a person who hasn't until they reach it. Only then will they know. But you know, there's some good news. Albert Einstein had something burned into the corner of his desk that he said was responsible for every great invention he ever brought about. And this is what he had burned into his desk. That all creation waits. Now think now. All creation, he said, all creation waits with eager longing for the revealing through the sons of man. That's you, and it's me, and it's those around you. In other words, the way to do anything you want to do, it's already here, but you've got to use something to work with it. You've got to use your ability to reason, your ability to choose, your ability to think. You've got to use it. And we're going to cover those 2 areas because you see, you can reason 2 ways, and that's what we're going to touch on here. Now, go through with me then the last paragraph in this page. You can control what enters your subconscious mind, and furthermore, you definitely have the God-given ability to change the old conditioning. And by doing this, you can transform your life. Now, that's what a behavioral scientist would say. Let's go over to the other side, to the philosopher, the theologian. What would they say? Let's go back to a guy by the name of Paul. He was a pretty bright guy. He used to walk along the shores of Galilee there, and he was picking up and learning as well. And he said something like this. He said that if you want to be transformed, he said, be not of this world. Now, he didn't mean to leave it. What he was pointing out is what you must do is be not of this world of conditions and circumstance. Be not of what already is. But he said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, the renewing of your conditioning, the renewing of an idea. In other words, replace one idea with a new idea. All right. Would you turn the page, please? Just turn the page over to page 12. What is the purpose of the intellectual factors you see at the top of this page? It says your conscious mind has been endowed with intellectual factors. We know that. This little girl has been endowed with intellectual factors. But in the beginning, They were not able to guard or to protect her against all the information she was getting. You know that Rebecca, you wouldn't do a thing on earth to harm Rebecca. Isn't that true, Dad? There isn't anything you'd ever do to harm Rebecca. But you know, Dad doesn't know everything there is to know about living. And Rebecca's going to be exposed to so many things. Let me give you an example of how Rebecca starts to use what are called her intellectual factors just quickly. Now, you could bounce over here, and this is Rebecca now at the age of reason. And Rebecca goes to school. And as she's in there with all the other kids in school, the teacher takes and she puts something on the board for all the kids. And this is what it is. C-A-T. Rebecca does not know what that means. She may have a cat at home, but she doesn't know what it is in a word form. The teacher knows they have sensory factors. Rebecca can see that. She can see cat sends a transmission of energy to cells in her brain. They increase in amplitude of vibration, but there is no picture other than a blank one. So the teacher has to build some cells of recognition. She's going to start to use now her intellectual factors, and this is how she'll do it. She'll say, now class, that's C-A-T. I want you all to repeat after me. She'll say, that's ca-at. Now I want everybody to say that in the room here. Come on. Ca-at. Okay? Now I want you to say ca-at, and I want you to say it a little bit faster. Come on. Ca-at, cat, 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 cat. And a picture jumps into little Rebecca's mind, a beautiful little fluffy at home. Now she has a word and she has a picture to identify with it. But you know, on her way home, she's all excited to go home and tell Dad everything that she's learned. She goes dashing through this construction site. And as she goes dashing through, takes shortcut, this guy yells out, hey, Charlie, bring that big cat over here. On go the brakes. What is she looking for? She's looking for little Fluffy, but what does she see? A big, giant earth-moving machine. Now she has two pictures for one word. Two pictures, one word. She gets home, she says, Mommy, Daddy, teacher told me all about Fluffy, C-A-T, and I'm going home here, and the man yelled. And I see this, oh no, honey, that was a caterpillar. Now she's got three pictures for one word. But you see, they explain it to her, and something goes away, and it's called confusion. Now, I want you to think about this. At some point in your life, in your little life, you were taught things about money, about love. You were taught things about God. You were taught things about work. You were given things about people. Things about people. You were given things and taught things about you. Never measure up, never amount to anything. You're just like your mother or your father, you're just like your uncle. You can't trust anybody. All red-headed people have bad tempers. Now, if you ever met Bob, you know that's not true. So you see, we have all been taught these things as we started to grow in our life. And now we get to a point in our life where we start thinking about, what is it I want to do? I was talking to Paul a little earlier now. He goes to university here. Why is Paul going to university? Has Paul really decided on something Paul wants to accomplish? Because you see, now we're at a point where we start to think about what we want to do, but sometimes our conditioning gets in the way. Now, this is very important. I mentioned we can reason two ways. What are they? We can reason inductively, and we can reason deductively, and I want you all to say it with me. We can reason inductively. and we can reason. You know, one of the reasons that we do not continue to think and try to look for new and better ways to do what we want to do, to be what we want to be, and to get to where we want to go? Because we don't do it long enough. I said something this morning that if you put a little bit in, you get a. But if you put a whole lot in, you get a. Now, this is important on what I'm going to do here. Very important. When we start to use the idea that I'm just going to share with you here and just get through this workbook, I want you to think about this. There is a season to sow. There is a season to reap. But we don't do both in the same season. Now, at the count of 3, I'm going to ask you all to do it with me, that there's a season to sow, there's a season to reap, but you don't do both in the same season. Are you ready? Now, I want you all to do it with me. Come on. 1, 2, 3. There's a season, there's a season, but you don't do both in the same season.
Okay, so as always, a lot of information. I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose if you've never heard this information before. But through repetition and watching this stuff over and over, you pick up things you didn't pick up before. And in one of the previous episodes, we went over on Daily Dose of Mind stuff on why repetition is so important. Because as we're listening to the ideas that are presented, our mind goes off on a thought trip and we start to think about something. It sparks an idea of something. And we tend to, while we're thinking of that idea, we miss what's being said. And then we come back. And so then when we listen to it again, that portion that we were listening to before, when we had the thought trip, it's like we're hearing it for the first time. So, so important to go over this stuff over and over. Just some little highlight things that I had from this. He's talking about our greatest power, and John really gives some good examples, and he's got some funny stories and stuff with the kids and whatnot. But he says that, we are no longer infants, and we have control over what enters our subconscious mind. This is where the responsibility comes in, and we need to take full responsibility of what we're getting in our life, because we are in control to what we let enter our subconscious. There's so many things going on right now in the world, and we have the ability to accept or reject those ideas. But if we're not thinking, we just let them sneak right by into the subconscious. I think of some of the things that are being passed around on the internet that people just immediately just jump to as accepting them because they've seen it. But with so many different things in technology, so many different things can be faked and are not true. We really have to look and say, is this true? Is this right? Is this idea going to move me in the direction I want to go? And if not, we can go ahead and reject those ideas. I have here that you can control whatever enters your subconscious mind. And furthermore, you definitely have the God-given ability to change the old conditioning. So there's the hope. There's the silver lining, is that old conditioning that we have that was built when we were children. We can change. We can change that conditioning. And that conditioning we refer to as a paradigm. It's the multitude of habits. It's our conditioned mind. And when we do this, we transform our life. And then he brought up the saying from St. Paul that if you want to be transformed, be not of this world. So if we want to be transformed, we want to transform our lives, we have to do it by looking inside first, not by looking at our outside conditions and circumstances, because that's going to create the ideas. If we're using our physical senses and we're using our sight, and we see the results over here that we don't want, but we're looking outside, that is going to cause us to think images that are in harmony with the results. So when he says, be transformed, not of this world, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We have to look inside. We have to turn off these senses. Don't look at the outer world and create the image that we want here in the conscious mind by using our reasoning factor, by using what John will go into later, into our intellectual factors of our imagination. We use our imagination to build an idea. We take all of these thoughts that are floating up here and this power that's flowing into the conscious mind, and we create an idea in here and then suppress it, or impress it into the subconscious mind, which then will start to change the conditioning. He said the reasoning factor is what we want to focus our attention on. It says the reasoning factor gives us the ability to think for ourselves and control the ideas that goes into our subconscious mind. And that's what we want to do, is we want to control the flow. Bob is always saying this from back then up until his passing. We want to control the flow. Once we learn to control the flow of power that's coming through us, coming to and through us, then we can start to create what it is that we want in our life. We can start to really change things, create our own economy, create the life that we want, the relationships what we want. We can become what we want to become by renewing of our mind. It's all about the mind. We got to get this. So that is all I have for today. Tomorrow, we go into deductive and inductive reasoning. John is going to go further into that and go into the inductive and deductive reasoning factor. And watch this again. I'll say it every time. Watch this over. I started watching this program back in 2006 was when I was first introduced to this program. And I periodically pull it out and watch it. And that's why I'm studying this again, because he's got such good ideas. And you can watch other videos on YouTube and stuff. And Bob's going to give him the same ideas because it's the repetition of these ideas. This is the most complete. And, some people look at it and go, they can't get past that. Oh, it was done in the 80s, and some of the hairstyles and the shoulder pads. You're missing the point, man. You've got to listen to the ideas. The ideas are what's important. Not so much the ideas, but what you think because of the ideas. So the outside and the outfits and some of the stories that maybe don't fit within today's society, I don't care. It's the ideas that I want to get into my subconscious mind so I can further move myself into the directions of the goals that I have set for myself. And I continue to study this stuff. I hope you'll study it with me. So if you got value from this, like always, like, share, invite somebody to watch you on live, leave me comments, all that good stuff. I will see you guys tomorrow for the deductive and inductive reasoning. So that is it for today. Once again, my name is Ed Reiner. This is the Daily Dose of Mind Stuff. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace. God bless.